Welcome to Arts Talk TV. We're putting a spotlight on creativity. Hi, I'm Karina Lawrence and welcome to Arts Talk TV. We're here at the She Oak Shack Gallery Art Cafe in the Tweed Shire here in the Northern Rivers suburb of Fingal. This venue has showcased incredible talent and supported artists since 1999. It offers its own music program, in-house art gallery, and delicious assortment of food in a relaxed environment. So definitely check it out if you're in the area. I'm so excited to introduce you to our next guest. She's a graphic designer and an award-winning artist. Please welcome to the show, Sally Joyce.
Thank you, Karina.
Oh, thanks for joining us. It's so exciting having you here on the show. Where did it all begin for you?
So I grew up in a small town of Kyogle in northern New South Wales. There was this beautiful little art school in Lismore who was offering scholarships to local children. She had studied at the Julian Ashton School in Sydney. She taught us those really traditional skills of observation and learning to draw from life. It was just a really great stepping stone into something that a lot of people may need to travel to Sydney. I got to learn a lot of the Julian Ashton principles in drawing and observation.
How detrimental did you feel that was for you to develop your skills as an artist?
It's everything. I think having mentors in whatever you do is so important as a young person. As a high school student, my mum, I remember, brought me over to the Gold Coast to meet a couple of local artists, and there was a local landscape painter in my hometown. He was someone that just taught me how to see light and see the landscape, and from that moment I sort of felt like I got landscape painting. The buzz it gave me personally to observe that light and beauty in nature is, I guess, something that's driven me intrinsically to want to paint the landscape.
I think the amazing thing in the appreciation, seeing a beautiful sunset and the colours and the way the light just shifts, and it's nature.
It's about observation and it's about noticing those different little things. And I think particularly in my recent show, what was really exciting was I showcased a particular road that leads to my hometown of Kyogle. It's called the Lions Road. When people came to my show, sometimes they got to drive along the road after seeing my show, and some of the comments were, we saw it with different eyes. And that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to observe and notice those little things. I first conceived that show 20 years ago. I was like, I want to paint a painting from every bridge, on every creek crossing in this most beautiful place. It was a road that was built by the community with a give it a go attitude. They were told that they wouldn't get government funding for 20 years down the track. So the local Lions Club got together and got some other type of funding and basically said, we'll build it ourselves. And they did. I thought the best way to go about it was to book the gallery. I went to the space and thought it was a newly renovated gallery in my hometown, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's called the Roxy Gallery. And I was like, this is the place where I need to exhibit this body of work. I went to see the curator and she really encouraged me to say, look, you have a story, make me realise what I already had and what skills I could draw upon to put this show together. So I was intending it to be mostly paintings. I can tell the story through printed media, through digital graphics, and I can put together an exhibition using all these mediums to create my response to this place.
So you've done a Bachelor of Visual Art at James Cook University, that you did a thesis.
So as part of my honours for James Cook University, we had to complete a 10,000 word thesis.
Wow.
And as an artist, you sometimes just do something, but you don't always question why you do it. You may just draw something or paint something in a theme for a reason that you don't often think about. But the thesis was sort of really digging deep into why and what sort of message I could put across.
And then you also did a Diploma of Visual Communication with the Design College in Australia.
Design College Australia in South Brisbane.
Yeah,
it was just a small private design college run by a lady called Julie Fitzner.
So you also spent some time working at the Queensland Museum.
Yeah, that was a really beautiful job that I had the opportunity to work for the Queensland Museum in the exhibition department. And what was great about that was that I was working along really skilled craftspeople who were actually quite specialised in their craft of conserving or building exhibits. And what I learned from exhibition design was sort of the creation of a whole space to tell a story. We wanted to create a diorama, and it might have a mangrove tree in it. To preserve that mangrove tree, you would put the mangrove tree in silicon and all the leaves would sort of stay flexible, but they'd lose their colour. One of my jobs might have been to paint every leaf of that mangrove tree and every little vein. What was also important was really true observation, because as a museum, we had to get the facts right. We also did a lot of cast painting, so I would get a cast of a dinosaur, for example, in fiberglass, and I would get to actually hold this dinosaur bone to observe it and then paint it back to look real. And I think as an exhibiting artist, as a fine artist, that experience of an exhibition designer has been really helpful, because when you put on a show, you can just hang your work on the wall, or you can have that, you can create a space where you can tell the full story. I did an exhibit for Cloncurry. We refurbished the John Flynn Museum. So I went and sat on the riverbank in Cloncurry, and I chose the leaves, I chose rocks, and from that, that's how I chose the colours. The carpet in the John Flynn place was actually an aerial pattern of the landscape, because it was about someone who was a pilot who'd flown over the land, and I had the chance to have a helicopter ride on one of the local stations, Devoncourt Station. So I photographed it, and then we worked together with the carpet company to print an aerial pattern onto the museum floor, which is actually now in the Qantas Museum as well. So that was a really exciting thing to learn that how that story can be told in every surface of the exhibit.
Like the attention to detail.
I worked at the Queensland Museum for over 2 years on a number of projects, and then I went travelling. And it was while I was travelling that I just happened to pick up some work in a design agency working for Burger King. Went from a pub job to a really nice graphic design job in a really nice design studio in Edinburgh. Like, we would design kids' meal planners, like, you know how you get the mats in the thing. It's a really interesting experience when you go from creating something that's so important and so valid. And I think the wake-up call for me was, you know, we'd spend so much time creating this stuff, and then I would see my work literally scrunched up in the middle of the road as rubbish. What are we contributing to? And be part of that totally opposite world, conserving the environment, and to suddenly be creating these things. You know, that
contradictive in a way.
That was probably the first place where I was introduced to the brand of the crocodile hunter. So I was in Edinburgh designing kids' Happy Meals with crocodile hunter branding on it. And when I got back to Australia, I actually wrote to Australia Zoo, and they didn't have a graphic designer working for them at the time. And then I ended up working for Australia Zoo in a totally different context.
Do you feel like your passion enhanced as you learnt? Because I noticed, like, your workshop experience that you've done just to perfect your skill set is very inspiring.
Yeah, and I think doing workshops is part and parcel of being an artist. Artists offer themselves up for workshops as a way of earning income, but it's also a way of sharing their specialised skills and their craft. And I think also in the digital age, I've since learnt a lot about photo editing and Photoshop and stuff like that, but I actually still use the drawing skills that I learnt from my drawing teacher, David Paulson. I actually use those drawing skills when I'm deep etching or doing Photoshop work. By being a good drawer, it made me better on the computer.
When you're doing your own stuff, like, where do you get your inspiration from?
Nature. Yeah. The landscape, everything around me, and that's life as well. You know, I heard a quote on a children's movie the other day: the answers to life's challenges you'll always find in nature, and it's no different in painting.
You had an artist in residency, which was funded by the Sunshine Coast Council and Aura Community Grants in the kindies and childcare centres.
I did 2 murals at the kindy over a course of 2 years. The whole basis of it was to give more beauty to the space. Those young years are really so important in children's lives. The first one I painted when the children were on holidays, and the second one I painted while the children were there, and I shared a lot more with it, and it grew because of that, because I had that interaction with the children, and the things they spoke to me about and told me, I included them in the mural as we went. So for example, one little girl would go to sleep wearing butterfly wings, because when she woke up she would be a butterfly. So there's a little fairy sleeping under the tree, like a little child, and that's her.
I think too, something that really stands out, how you've contributed as an artist, is a big part of your passion has been the value of embedding creativity into childhood.
I've realised that my greatest gift in being an artist and having creativity was a free childhood and having creativity in my childhood. We're in really interesting times because everyone is telling us that creativity is the skill of the future in every industry. But what they're saying at the same time is that children are currently failing the creativity test. What do we need to do, and what is it that children need in their lives and in their childhood to make sure that they continue to be creative? Having confidence is what gives you creativity. It's that willingness to have a go, to try something. And I don't know any artist whose practice isn't about having a go and trying and experimenting. We're also in a time where childhood anxiety and childhood depression are skyrocketing. The reason for lack of creativity and the reason for lack of confidence is lack of playtime in their lives. And the definition of play is something that you do for no outcome. It's done without adult direction. So play in its purest form is just what children do.
Creating their own world.
Yeah, when they're in their own world. And from my observation, that's when magic happens. To get to that state of deep thinking, even as an artist, you need to have a state of boredom, and there's this real fear of letting children be bored. That's when they pick up a pencil to write. That's when they pick up an instrument to play. That's where they learn to be comfortable in their own minds.
Your awareness has definitely been passed on. You're a mum. Your 10-year-old son Angus wrote a song, Pete the Pebble, has featured on radio. It's streamed on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes. Pete the Pebble started across the Sunshine Coast and has made it as far as London, Broome and Berlin. So tell me more about Pete the Pebble.
So he wrote the song about Pete the Pebble. There was a lot of people exercising in our area and they were dropping painted stones around the neighbourhood. And I mentioned that to my son and said, you know, what colour would Pete look like? And he said blue, because the only spray paint we had was heat blue, because he follows the Brisbane Heat. He painted this Pete the Pebble, and I said, well, you know, you could maybe hide him around. He sort of went that next level and said, no, I'm going to make 100 of them. So he made 100 Pete the Pebbles in the backyard, and we took them around the neighbourhood, and we have a community Facebook page that we'd get these reports of, oh, I found Pete the Pebble here on this bridge, and someone said, oh, that's funny, he must have travelled really quickly because I found him over here on this laneway. And little did they know that there was actually 100 of them out there. So it sort of created a little bit of energy about this Pete the Pebble. My son said he wanted to make a film clip for the song. So he actually wrote the frame, like drew out the frames of what he wanted in what shots and what words he wanted in. I did a little bit of the filming, but he did the rest of the photography and the filming himself. The beauty of technology comes in is when children have got something active to do on it. It's not mindless. When they've got a goal and they can use it to make something or create something. So we released it, you know, just on our local Facebook community area. And then we got back to school. Did you know that there's a song competition out? It's a Queensland songwriting competition, and you had to submit a song that you'd written and a video.
Wow.
And it was technically done. And so he entered and it won. So there was another school mum in our community who's an established singer, and she has a recording studio. And so I just said, what would it be? Well, how much would it cost to record it? So she gave us a quote, and I said to my son, okay, well, how do you think we could fund this? So we came up with the idea of printing t-shirts. So he drew Pete, and because I have a screen printing background, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to teach him those hands-on skills of how to print a shirt. And we printed the shirts and we put them up for sale, and through the sale of the shirts we were able to self-fund the recording of the song. The lady who recorded it for us said, you know, it only costs, you know, $10 a year to put it onto Spotify, and that obviously did take a lot of time to get my head around APRA AMCOS and everything to do with the music world, because I'm in the visual world. Then we just put it to the wind and put it out there.
How incredible. A little seed of creativity planted and just grew and grew and grew.
I have a number of friends overseas from travelling days. We posted Pete the Pebble him to London, and I have a good friend in Germany. We posted him to Cologne in Germany, and any other friends I could think of. One in Holland.
Yes.
And they so embraced it, and so they set about carrying Pete the Pebble with them and photographing him.
And that's important and impactful to him, isn't it?
Something really important, I believe, is when you're teaching children art or something like that, is to let them all create their own piece. And it's how you respond to it depends on all your life experiences and all different things that have influenced you in colours or what techniques you know, and it's just how you respond to that subject. And the beauty of it, it's never the same.
Okay, so now let's talk about some of your awards. We received awards for the TNT magazine in London, Sydney Morning Herald Art Award, with the Commonwealth Bank Christmas Card Design Award, Brisbane Art Directors Award, and the Design College of Australia, and selected for publications Design Down Under Discovery too.
So they're all little things that as artists you are encouraged to enter things. The TNT magazine one, anyone who's been a backpacker in London, and every week they'd had a photo competition, and the winner of the photo competition would win a little trip on one of the local backpacker tours. And I won a trip around England, Ireland, Scotland, like a little bus trip. So then I entered again and won another one. So I self-funded these little trips around the UK through
and
these.
Was submitting like travel photos.
Like that.
We have a little special segment that we do at the end of our interviews called a Shutter Speed Challenge.
Okay.
Are you up for it?
I am. I'm not very good at answering off the cuff, but I'll give it a go.
Last song you listened to?
Probably Cat Empire.
What does creativity mean to you?
Probably spirit. It's in everything that you do.
Person you'd most like to meet?
My grandmothers. One of my grandmothers was killed when I was just 3 months old. So I actually never knew her.
What would you ask them?
I don't know if I'd ask them anything as much as thank them. For me, it's just this extra presence that we all feel in our lives that if you tune into it, it responds.
Last piece of art that affected you?
Probably a piece made by a good friend of mine. She's been a really great influence to me because she's an artist mother.
If you had to label creativity with a colour, what colour would you choose?
Oh, I'd have to say purple because that's always been my favourite colour.
What would you miss most about the arts?
Everything. I think it's part of life. When we don't have it in our lives, we realise that we're the worse off for it.
What's on your bedside table?
A lot of unread books.
What chore do you most dislike doing?
Cleaning the house.
In one word, what does art mean to you?
Spirit. Yeah.
Sally, it has been so lovely sitting here listening to your journey, and really your soul does radiate absolute beauty, and I see your eyes light up. I see your sense of passion and that you contribute to the community just in allowing that to be showcased and shown. So thank you.
Thank you, Karina.
Blessings. I can't wait to see more of your work. We hope you've enjoyed the episode. We'll look forward to catching you next time.